Welcome back to When Hope Endures with Mabel and Wesley. And once again, we have Brenda with us today. We're going to be finishing up her story, and we have her husband, Kelly, with us as well. We're going to be talking about the adjustments of returning home and things, how it was getting back to regular life, and maybe any difficulties as well as things that helped you to continue pressing forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it was when I got out of the transitional rehab. I was 49 at the time, and I went back to living with my mom and dad because, I really wasn't able to fully care for myself at that time. And, thankfully, they could have me come live there. And, my mom could make meals and those kinds of things because I couldn't really do that. And she even did my laundry for a while. And then as things progressed, she was like, okay, now it's time for you to do your home laundry. I was like, I had evolved into a teenager again. Yeah. And so my dog was there, and, um, things for the most part went better than I had anticipated they would. My sister and brother-in-law had offered that if it was a disaster, that I could come stay at their house. They live, locally as well. And so, um, for the most part, it was fine. I went back to work on a part-time basis, and I initially, I don't work, my office in Ogden is not very far from the light rail station.
Okay.
So I was originally going to go that way because I couldn't drive at the time. I was going to take the light rail up to Ogden, and I tried that on one occasion where my dad dropped me off in Murray at the station. And, I took light rail up to the office, and then a friend of mine that I used to work with picked me up at the station and then took me over to the office, even though the office is maybe 3 blocks from my office. I wasn't at that point where I could walk that far.
Right.
So I went up there, and I just remember it was a really long day. And I mean, I don't know how many hours I was there, probably about, I don't know, 6 or something. And I took light rail back. And when I got off the light rail station, I've never been so happy in my life to see my dad. I mean, I was like, thank God he's here. Because I was so tired at that point,
Right.
because I'm still having that severe fatigue. And, so obviously I'm at the point where I'm still trying to kind of get my law firm up and running again. And so for a very long time, and even now I'm working, right now I'm working part-time. But then I was much more, a couple days a week I was going up there. And I decided that what I was going to do is take a lift up to Ogden every day and back, because then I could have somebody pick me up at the house, drop me off right at the office, and then vice versa. And I mean, it worked out well. And,
You weren't switching multiple transportations
Yeah.
throughout the day.
that just sort of added to the anxiety of what was going on and the exhaustion of it all. And fortunately, I mean, I was lucky enough that I could afford to do that. So I did that. I, built back up my law firm. Was able to then have my legal assistant come back and work for me full time. And I've always done some kind of hybrid now where I'm working from home and where I'm working in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met the love of my life. I had, I was meeting with new clients and that kind of thing, and Kelly was scheduled. I was in 2018, I think in April of 2018. So it's a year out from my stroke. I wasn't driving at that point, I don't think. Well, maybe I was. I was able to drive again in January of 2018. I have a spinner knob to help me with making turns and that kind of thing, since my left arm doesn't really work. But at any rate, Kelly came in, and I had my assistant bring him in and that kind of thing, and I thought, finally, I got an attractive client. Yeah. He was very sweet. He had been represented by another attorney in the divorce that he was dealing with, and yeah, I remember him being kind of flirty with me, and I remember in the hospital thinking, no one is going to want to date me in this kind of condition. I'm never going to date again. I'm never going to get remarried, and so it was nice to have somebody actually flirt with me, because he's like, "So are you single?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And then at one point he said to me, "Well, maybe one day both of us will find true love again." And then he fist bumped me. Yeah. So it was great. And so at one point I said to him, I said, "Okay, well, do you want to hire me, or what do you want to do?" And he said, "Yeah." And then as he was leaving, he said, "Do you mind if I hug you?" And I thought, I've never had a client hug me before, like at an initial consultation. And it felt good. It's been a long time that, even then. I'll let you can tell the story if you want.
Let's hear your side of the story.
Yeah.
Completely different. No, well, when I just walked in, thought she was gorgeous, and I'm kind of shocked. Like, oh, right on, versus the attorney I was using before, guy, it just felt really good. And so we talked, like she said, and talked through everything. And when I went to give her a hug in the end, I just noticed, two things. I noticed how frail she was. I could put my arms around her and I could feel, ribs and stuff. I'm like, huh, she's a skinny little thing, put on a few pounds or something there. But and then she was limping. I'm like, oh, I didn't notice her hand. I just saw she was limping. And I just figured, well, she hurt her foot or something. And so she was forthright, told me right away I had a stroke. I'm like, oh. Well, I didn't know what to say to that. I don't even know what I said to that. I'm just kind of like, oh, and then, there's, on the way out, she offered me a Diet Coke. I won't tell you the whole story, but totally sold me on her. So we both love Diet Coke. There's a little backstory there that you probably don't want to hear on here, but
They might.
Yeah.
do they?
They probably do.
Well, so she has a little, for customers, her clients, she has a little fridge that, she has goodies in, and Diet Coke's part of that. And she goes, "Would you like a Diet Coke?" And I said, "Well, sure." So in order to get the Diet Coke, I got to demonstrate several how else to do it.
Well, I don't know how you do that on a podcast, so.
It'll help me explain.
You have to
So she goes over to the little fridge here, and she reaches in there and grabs the Diet Coke, and I'm standing right behind her, and I'm going, "Oh my goodness!" So for you on the podcast, she's bending over, her head's inside the fridge, and she's kind of looking good to me. So then, I'm looking around like, what the heck, nobody does this. But it's because of the
He
stroke.
thought it was
I
flirting.
thought she was flirting with me and kind of did a little pose action.
Right?
Yeah, I don't have any flirt in me.
I look back and forth, see if anybody's looking, and so I took a second, a little bit of a longer stare. And I'm like, I gotta go out with this chick, man. She's hot. I've been married for a lot of years, but I found somebody that's really cool.
That's awesome. What you thought was flirting was her
Yeah,
shopping
She
with
wasn't
her
flirting.
mobility.
I kind of thought she
that's
was
the best I could
flirting
do.
back. So, then, just over time we ended up, because you're not really supposed to date a client. So we both had an infinity, if that's the right word for each other, really hit it off, and it was awesome. But, we had to really be careful because I don't think you're supposed to do that. So and she was nice enough to meet me here in Salt Lake and because I lived here, so did she. So rather than me drive all the way down here, we'd meet, and I didn't really think much about the stroke at all. I mean, I didn't think about it. She's just a person like anybody else. So that did not affect me,
It affected his family, though. When I met, when his dad passed away and his aunt was in town from Illinois and his brother, it was the first time I was meeting either of them. And really, I think they were like, I can't believe you're dating somebody who's had a stroke and who, is as disabled, I guess, as she is. And
one of them pulled her aside, said, "What's your intentions?" And
yeah.
And they were, "What's your intentions?" With my nephew or whatever.
Yeah.
And my jaw, Theo, the one they're scratching, jumped up on her. She fell down right in front of them all,
Yeah.
and they had to help her up because I was in the other room or something, and I think they were all shocked.
Yeah.
But I guess she says a different way of thinking. Whatever. If you're a cool person, you're a cool person. That's what I like.
Yeah, that was the best part. He could, consider me for, who I really was, not how I walked.
You get a bum leg or something, plus she's a really good kisser. We got to the point where obviously we could date,
After the divorce is what it was.
So, she's got a lot of good qualities, and plus we think so much alike. And I could talk for an hour about all that, just really well.
We will have been married for 4 years on June 20th, so.
That's
A couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that makes you an amazing person because
exactly.
You didn't see, you loved her for who she was. And like you said, you never even thought about it. And you probably thought about it quite often.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there. But definitely a keeper in that aspect.
First time we went out, he had to meet my mom and dad because I was still living with them. And I thought, who would want to date somebody who's still living at home with their mom and dad?
It was weird.
Yeah.
You do that in high school, right?
Yeah.
Knock on the door. Is Brenda home?
Yeah.
I don't know how old I'm 50, whatever. I was in my 50s, knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Brenda home? Come on in. What's your intention with my daughter? He was nice and all, but it's like kind of fun to do that. But it didn't really make me want to stop. But it is kind of a weird dynamic,
Definitely.
Well, and then he was able to help me when I had to sell the house that I used to own is literally a block down the street from here. And I had to sell that after I had the stroke because it had the garage was underneath and I had to go up 18 stairs to get to the main level of the house. And I thought, well, now how am I going to haul stuff up? Groceries and, my bag and that kind of thing. And so that wasn't going to work. So I sold that house and then I was living with my mom and dad and I had money in the bank. So I also was thinking that I was going to close down my law firm in Ogden and practice somewhere closer to my family in case I had another problem. And, just so I had my family support, my friend support, that kind of thing. And I ended up buying a house out in South Jordan. And then, fortunately, Kelly was in my life at that point. And so he helped me move in and that kind of thing. And at one point, even I got stuck in a bathtub and I had to have him. I used to be able to get in and out of a bathtub and that kind of thing. And Kelly and I had been dating for a while at that point, but I had to call him and say, will you come get me out of the bathtub because I can't get out.
She's stuck.
Yeah.
And her leg, her foot, like here down, just blew.
Yeah.
Shirt blew.
Wow.
Like, whoa. She called me, and at first I thought she was kidding, but no, she wasn't. So I rushed my
I'm not that funny.
rushed my butt down there and pulled her out of the tub, But not without making a little bit of a joke first, like, "Ooh, hey, baby." I pulled her out pretty quick because I knew her pretty well.
Right.
This is going to be good.
And you see a blue foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had lots of little fun stories, but it's not really. I don't know. Add a little humor to your.
Podcast. Yeah.
Um, definitely enjoy that.
Yeah.
Uh, so with the driving, so we go back to driving a little
Mhm.
bit. What was the process to be able to drive again after? Did you have to? So you talked about having to have a car with the knob. Did you have to go through any additional tests? So
Yes, all of it.
okay, so we had to go through with Mabel. We had to go through an occupational therapist that was specific to driving.
Yes.
We had doing driving tests with the occupational therapist, and then another one with the driver's license division
Yes.
afterwards before she could be authorized to drive again. And now every 2 years, she has to have the neuro-ophthalmologist sign off whether she's still good to drive. So curious what the process was for you, because for us it was a long process. So
Oh, it was very long. Did you have to do the written test too?
I think so. Well, not written, but like on the computer.
Yeah, on the computer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had to do that too. I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't studied for, the. So they gave me the book, and
Yeah.
and the guy says to me afterwards, he's like, I don't think we've ever had anybody do the, written portion of it on the computer as fast as you. And I said, well, I studied. I mean, I'm like, this is how crazy type A I am. I'm like, yeah, I must get an A on every test, including the driver's license test. And then my dad had to drive with me because I had to have, Kelly and I weren't seeing each other around that period of time. And I had to have a family member drive with me when I took the test with driver's license division. And my dad says to the woman, she really needs this driver's license because she's an attorney up in Ogden. She needs the ability to get to and from work. And
And then he handed her $100.
yeah, he didn't bribe her, no, but yeah, he did give her kind of the come to Jesus talk.
That I
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. So unfortunately, I had to do all of that. And and I had to go through with the occupational therapist as well. Because I even initially they had screened me for it, and then they said, no, you're not ready. And I just remember, because I have this occupational therapist that's been with me the whole
Mhm.
time. And I was out front of the building over at Tosh, and I started crying, and she had been very kind of aloof, really. I mean, she was a nice person, but she was kind of standoffish. But then when I started crying in front of her, and she said, Brenda, you are going to eventually be able to drive. Some people who have had a stroke aren't going to be able to drive ever again. And she said, you are going to be able to someday, but just not right now. And so I thought, okay, well then I can, it was helpful that she was willing to at least, kind of talk me through, but yeah, so eventually I was able to drive again in January of 2018, and that's been fine. And my family was very worried about me driving essentially with one hand. And I really haven't had a problem with it. I mean, it makes me more nervous, I guess, in the winter when it's snowing and when the roads are really bad. So I need to make sure that I can, like I'm more worried than I ever was. I've never been a worried driver in the snow because, I've lived here
Right.
since I was 5, but
You'd never know until from sitting in the passenger seat. She was great.
no, thank you.
Super confident. I didn't even know that.
Oh, that driving in the snow
Makes
fun.
you, you
Yeah.
know.
I'm very glad when I get home. Yeah. But yeah, so any rate, it was a long process, but thankfully it worked. And I found out that I couldn't drive because I got a ticket for driving on suspension because I had sold the house in my other house. They had sent me a notice that said your driver's license is suspended. I had no idea. And here I am, an attorney. I go over to Ogden City and I said, hey, here's the deal. I sold my house. I didn't get the mail. And, I had a stroke and I thought, oh, for sure they're going to dismiss it. No, I had to pay a $50 fine. And I thought, this is rude. Somebody who's had a stroke? Come on, people.
Do you want to tell them why it was suspended, though?
Oh, because the paperwork hadn't been filled out correctly by the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we had a similar situation to that. We were, it was last year. So we didn't know that when they approved her driver's license, that it was only approved for 2 years. Her driver's license had an expiration date beyond that.
Yeah.
But supposedly the driver's license board of the state of Utah only accepted that the paperwork from the neuro-ophthalmologist for 2 years. We were camping and we got a letter during that time. Well, my brother was helping out with our dog, so he was bringing the mail inside. Well, that letter kind of got off to the side, stating that you have 60 days to provide an updated form.
Yeah.
And so we didn't provide the form in time and we found out when we received the second letter that basically said, okay, your driver's license has been revoked. I'm like, what? We never received the first form, and then we saw there are forms behind it that we had to take to the neuro-ophthalmologist. So at that time, we were at the other camping trip when we received that. She drove home not knowing her license had been revoked from Flaming Gorge, and come home to find out it had been revoked. Went through the whole process.
Stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through the whole process, and then they denied it again because they interpreted the doctor's data differently. So the neuro-ophthalmologist had to call the board and say, no, this is what it meant. Finally got her driver's license back. So kind of not the same, but kind of similar there.
Oh, very.
Where...
well, and it would have been nice if somebody would have said, hey, this is kind of the process.
Right.
So to be on alert for, or you even contact the DMV yourself. I mean, I had no idea. The cop was like, you're driving on suspension. I said, ha, 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 ha. And he's like, no, I'm serious. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And it turned out that the neurologist had filled out part of the form, but not the other part, or I can't remember what it was. Like there were 2 different sections he needed to fill out, and he filled out one. And I thought, why is this such a problem here? But yeah, that was my driver's license story.
How about other everyday things? What are some of the things that you may have taken for granted beforehand that you probably did without even thinking that became much harder after coming home?
Like offhand, I'm thinking of like blow drying my hair. I have like a device that holds my hair dryer, so it's essentially my second hand.
Okay.
And they gave that to me in the hospital, so that's the other thing I tell everybody. Whatever they give you in the hospital, make sure you take it. Yeah, exactly. Take it with you. Dancing, I loved to dance before the stroke had happened, and really any opportunity I could go dancing somewhere, sports and that kind of thing. Like before the stroke happened, I used to box, and sort of the ability to be light on my feet, that's completely gone. So Kelly and I will kind of goof around and dance together.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's just nothing like it used to be. Or like, cooking is a disaster. I used to host big parties for my friends and like look up, like I had to have Food Network on cable so I could watch, recipes and my favorite chefs and that kind of thing. And I would look up recipes and, I didn't really like to cook day to day, but if I was going to have a party, I was going to have like a real party with really good food. And so I would look at the ratings and I would make all sorts of, great food and, decorate it up to the hilt and that kind of thing. And I just don't really, I can't really do that anymore. And like, I find that since the stroke, I don't really want to do that. And I don't know if it's because of, mentally, it bugs me to not be able to do it to the level that I used to be able to do it. Or, you know, I mean, obviously Kelly will help me anytime that I want to make anything cooking wise, but really there's not a lot that I can really cook. So he does the majority of the cooking. And I mean, even when I was living on my own before he and I got married, I would just eat, you know, I'd have to buy like fruit already cut up. Like I like pineapple, so I would buy a pre-cut pineapple. And in the old days, I would cut my own pineapple because it's cheaper.
Right.
You know, so this money saving things I can't do. You always have to find fruit that's already cut up, or, you know, I don't know. It's just, it's hard. And, you know, like I've got different adaptive things. Like I've got a can opener that I can use, that I can open cans with one hand. It hooks onto the can. I like that. My sister got me a cutting board where it has spikes that come up from it, so you could position like whatever vegetable you wanted to cut on it.
So you don't have to hold it with.
Yeah. You know, and so like therapists have tried to kind of work with me on that, but like the fact that I can't do it as well as I used to be able to do, it's just depressing to me, and so I don't do very much. Yeah. Oh, I told him about the typing, about having to use Dragon Speak, and
where it used to be a fast typer.
Yeah, that's been hard. I have grab bars like going in and out of the garage. At times we've had to do grab bars in the shower, like when I used to live in my house in South Jordan that I had bought before we lived together and bought this house after we got married. I had to have grab bars installed in the shower so I could have something to hold on to. Or like even we had our bathroom, we remodeled, and we had to have a seat put in so I could sit down, because I used to not be able to dry myself off without sitting down because I didn't have enough balance to you know, do it. And I mean, even now I still have to sit down to get dressed. I can't pull up like pants or shorts or whatever from standing. So like balance has been an issue, but I've also participated with Wasatch Adaptive, and they do like adaptive sports. And like before the stroke, I never biked, but since the stroke, I went to Wasatch Adaptive, and they gave me a recumbent bike to ride. And I had a recovery on one of my clients' cases that came in kind of unexpectedly, and I was flush with money for a while. And so I thought, well, I'm going to buy a recumbent bike. And so now I have that, and hopefully I'm going to go to compete in the summit. What's it called? The summit? So I can't remember. It's something summit. But at any rate, the National Advocacy Center has a bike ride that they do every year, and hopefully I'm going to compete this year in it.
Nice.
That's awesome.
You know, so it's nice to be able to do different things than I could do before.
And to still make the most out of the situation, like
Right.
to go out there and still have a desire to do that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good physical therapy, I figure. So any kind of physical therapy is good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome. If you don't mind me asking from your side, are there adaptations that you've seen that she's made, or even progress from the time that you've married her? Because she's been doing she's been continuing occupational therapy. So have there been improvements that you've seen from your side from the last 4 years?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but yeah, I mean, she's come a long way. I mean, when we first started, going out, she would walk super slow, which took me, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So, but I kind of like walk. With so many things we had in common, I kind of like walk slow anyway. So, but she's extra slow because of her left leg. And so, but now sometimes she's just walking, you know, what I would consider normal speed, but I'm kind of still slow because, you know, I am. But yeah, she walks a lot faster. She uses her left arm a lot better than she ever has. She can put on and off the coat if she wants on her own now. I don't really have to help her, but I still like helping her. But you know, I used to love when she'd get out of the shower, she'd call me to dry her off. But now I don't get to do that anymore. You know?
Oh, I did have you do
We
that.
did a little bit at first. Like right when you moved to, I think, was it South Jordan? I think that's, anyway, yeah, at first, she didn't ask me to do it though, but I'd go in there because she couldn't really get to her back really easy or back of her legs or some of those things. Nowadays, she's got all that stuff down in the water.
Thank you.
You know, she's got, I don't know, with her left hand, she'll grab hold of the steering wheel. Takes her a minute. That's probably the only thing that scares me when we're driving because she likes to put her left hand on, and her right hand, of course, on the steering wheel. But she likes to, because I think it feels good. It gives it a little bit of extra because she's got some mobility with it. And when she does, she'll, you know, the car will swerve. Okay, hurry, put your hand on there and get it done. But she couldn't really do that before, you know. So yes, you know.
But lucky you had to help me with
Yeah,
one
but
cost
I mean, there's
today,
things I
the
still
button in
help
the
her with
back.
on occasion, you know, if it's a lot of times just because it's quicker. That's my thing. I just do a lot of things because it's quicker. If we're both in the bedroom and she's, you know, pulling on her pants, she's really got one arm,
Right.
you know, so she'll pull one side, pull the other, pull one side, and I'm like, so she just stands up. I go over and we have it down to her. We might do them up, and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, she could go get herself water. You know, if she's like, "Hey, could you give me some water?" Yeah. But I tell you what, it's a lot faster for me just to hop up, grab her water,
Right.
than have her. You know, it's painful for me to watch because I know I can do it faster. I know I should. I sometimes think I should let her do it. That's what her family sometimes tells me. But it's hard to watch, man. You know, takes me 30 seconds or less. You take her, I don't know, a minute maybe, you know, or whatever. Just kind of.
And so sometimes it probably is hard to let her do the things that you know she's supposed to be doing because you could just do it.
And she
faster.
tells me that you knock it off sometimes. She tells me, sit down. And I'll sit down and she'll go empty the dishwasher and do all the stuff. But, I don't know. That's off the top of my head. That's really all.
I think that is great to know and great for a lot of other people to understand as well, because it's interesting how even over the last few years, the information we have about recovery has changed. It used to be not so long ago, they would think, well, the majority of your recovery is done within the first 3 months to 6 months, and then you really only recover up to 2 years after the stroke. That used to be the common belief. And that's what he told us with aphasia and everything else as well. But now they're starting to find that years after, people are still making progress and recovery. Because that's what they told us. Well, around 6 months is where your vision will sit in where it's supposed to be. And then it can progress a little bit, but after 2 years, it's not going to progress. But then we start actually reading into newer studies where stuff, even the vision is still progressing after all these years, or the increased mobility after all this time. And I think that's definitely a lot more hope than knowing, well, okay, it's been 6 months. This is what I
Yeah,
got.
this is as good as it gets.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel like time has helped.
A ton really has.
It's awesome. So, what words of encouragement would you give others, or what are some things that really helped you get through this tough time? Because there was a lot of transition. It was a very difficult time. What are some things that helped you get through that? And what would you hope to possibly share with others who are through a transition period or going through something like this as well?
I think, obviously friends and family have been critical to me. Prayer has been, I mean, it meant more to me than anything when people would tell me that they were praying for me when I was in the hospital and after it happened. And, obviously, I have, prayed for my own recovery and prayed for things to be easier as time has gone on. So, I believe in God. And, I tell everybody, like, to really take advantage of what you have in the community in terms of therapist. I mean, I'm thankful for my therapist every day. I pray for them too. And yeah, I've told them that I volunteer over the hospital. So I try to, give back to people who, were in my same circumstance when I was in the hospital. And I also think that it's, critical that you interact with people who have been through what you've been through. They understand. They understand the crappy food at the hospital. I mean, they understand being exhausted to the level where you've never felt it before, and, just day after day and that kind of thing. And, just so you can take that one more step. Um, I mean, I'm just, stubborn, and I just have to keep moving, and I have to keep moving forward, and hopefully, that's a good thing in the long run for my recovery. I mean, because every day is recovery, every day is therapy. And, so I just do my best.
I see people sometimes that just give up.
Yeah.
And she could have probably been on disability. She
Yeah.
could have just given up.
I
But
probably could have.
she's a very hard-headed chick. I learned that right away. That's okay. I love that about her anyway.
Yeah.
But she could have just given up, but she didn't. And that would be my advice to people after working with Brenda. Don't give up, man. Look at all the stuff she's doing.
Yeah.
Life's a whole bunch better. And if you give up, you get depressed. I think, this is my life. I mean, she probably is depressed anyway, a little bit with that. 'Cause once in a while, she has her little,
Right.
I call them primal screams.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes it's very frustrating and it's, I went through a period, I think, of grief, where I grieved that person I was before. I grieved the ease of motion that I had, and, the ability to dance. And, I can't, like, it's frustrating to go to events now because I can't applaud. And, you
keep it
think,
together though.
yeah, yes. I used Kelly's hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was, sometimes it's really hard, and I mean, I let it be hard sometimes, and then I think, okay, now we move on. I've now screamed, I've sworn, I've, you know, cursed God, and, but I understand that it's a blessing that I'm still alive. I mean, I could have died, when this happened, and
Especially so many days that you went through it without knowing.
right.
And a lot of people is just the one day.
Right. And I'm so thankful that it didn't happen. I didn't hurt anybody. I wasn't in a car when it manifested itself, or, I'm thankful that, it wasn't worse. I'm thankful I'm not in a wheelchair still, because I ran into a gal that I was in the hospital, and she was up kind of walking, while we were in the hospital. And then when I saw her, like, I don't know, maybe a couple years later, she was back in a wheelchair, and I thought, So I felt so bad for her, because what you hope is that you're not going to be worse off than you were, or that it's going to repeat itself. And so thankfully it hasn't. And, but I think take advantage of, I mean, there are things that I used to like to do that I don't really like doing now. But there are a lot of things that I didn't like to do before that I like to do now.
Yeah.
So, it's all,
Finding a new something else to drive you.
yeah, it's like a new life.
No, that watch. What does it do for you?
Oh yeah, I keep track of all my steps on my watch, and because we did that breathing. Yeah. You don't have your watch on.
No, I don't have my watch right now, but yeah.
Yeah. But
I
yeah.
just still have it, but I didn't bring it to you.
It helps you with goals. I think it's a very, she's very goal driven.
Yeah.
And that, so how many steps did I get yesterday? Can I beat that? How many am I supposed to get? Goal driven. Keep moving, keep doing stuff. And let's do this tomorrow so we can reach those number of steps we need to get.
Yeah.
And you have many more years left
Well,
to
for
live,
sure.
right? And so living instead of just
Yeah.
resigning yourself and giving up for the rest of the time.
Right.
I think that's an important aspect of it. And by having those goals, by everything you're saying, that's kind of what that is you're continuing to live the rest of your life instead of just giving up. And I think you mentioned the emotions and the grieving, the loss. I think those are important to know that they're okay to go through for people, right? I mean, it is a loss. If we lose a loved one, we're going to mourn for them.
Yeah.
You've lost part of the things that you used to enjoy doing. You've lost the mobility. It's okay to mourn for the loss of that. And then you found new things to enjoy as well. So I think it's important. Sometimes we think, oh, well, I shouldn't be feeling these emotions. I shouldn't be sad about this or that. But I think those emotions are completely normal and important for us to know it's okay to feel those at times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, it's just a matter of not wallowing in the grief or the frustration or the, I mean, because you just have to keep moving forward.
Right.
I mean, that's the goal, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. We really appreciate the time of both of you for letting us come here in your house and for sharing your story. And again, hopefully, as people are listening to this, that they can find inspiration through that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.